Now we're looking at in-channel browsers. So for example, if you engage in an ad in Facebook, you're going to open up an in-app browser. That's a single isolated cookie is going to fire to track you, but then often within our device, we don't like that. Habitually, we go back to Safari if we're iOS users, or maybe Chrome if we're in an Android. Again, that's two different cookies, two different sessions. A multi-touch attribution solution cannot stitch that accordingly. And the list goes on. We're looking at GDPR, cookie consent issues. We're talking about iOS 14.5, which was incredibly disruptive when it came to our ability to be able to capture audiences within Facebook. Intelligent tracking prevention in Safari, where we now have cookies wiped within the Safari browser. Depending on the iteration of iOS on your phone, that's anywhere from 1, 3 to 7 days. So all in all, the message I suppose that I'm trying to give is that if you're investing in digital, predominantly your performance channels, Google and Facebook, relying on a multi-touch attribution solution is becoming increasingly challenged and is going to get even worse because we have the likes of Chrome and Google kind of raising the flag when it comes to privacy, and we expect them to have their own iteration of intelligent tracking prevention. So for many of us as marketers, when we look at our marketing reports, maybe we've invested quite considerably into our upper funnel channels, we see that an awful lot of this has been attributed to direct none. There are many of us familiar with that in the room when we got to pull our report and we're looking at this saying, oh no, that direct one is coming up again. I mean, there's been another channel that's been the cause here. And that's all. That problem is all a result of our inability to be able to stitch that customer journey. And this leads to two massive problems for us as performance marketers. First is the one I've touched on around marketing measurement. So we're investing quite considerably, particularly in upper funnel channels. So maybe you're investing in video on YouTube, branding campaigns in Facebook. All of that is incredibly valuable in driving qualified traffic to your website, but they're not converting within a single cookie, which means when you look into your dashboard with an ads manager within Facebook, you're not seeing the correct amount of conversions. When you look within GA, you're also not seeing that. So this leads to a budget allocation decision. When you go back to your CFO, you're trying to justify the budget for that large awareness campaign within Facebook or video on YouTube. How are you justifying that that budget was worth it? Of course, we use vanity metrics like conversion rate. We're looking at the number of clicks, sessions, etc. But is that good enough in order to be able to justify that budget? Often it's not, and as marketers, it's our job to continuously have that battle with our senior, most kind of financial stakeholders in the business. So as well as the ability to measure and justify budgets, there's also those cross-channel budget allocations. So we're trying to understand, should I invest more perhaps in an upper to mid-funnel channel, or maybe for an e-commerce business, maybe I should throw all my budget into Google Shopping. It's hard for us to understand where within our own strategy we should be allocating that budget beyond looking for budget increases. The second problem, for me personally, because of my background, I mentioned briefly, I work for a business called Marin Software, and they essentially are a business that was born predominantly on additional optimization for Google. So going back 10, 15 years ago, they essentially were one of the first players when it comes to adding bidding technologies onto Google. Now, we're very lucky because we have smart bidding technologies that are accessible to us at no cost. And these smart bidding technologies are essentially in publisher bidding systems using all of the additional signals that they have. So we know that these smart bidding systems rely on conversions as that feedback mechanism to tell them if they're doing a good job. So within Google, Facebook, this changes quite a lot, but typically they say you need about 40 conversions in the last 30 days to exit that learning phase, to tell the bidding algorithms whether you're doing a good job or not, for them to understand, okay, this user is good, I need to find more users that are similar to that. For an awful lot of us as marketers, particularly in that SMB space, we're challenged in the ability of being able to have enough campaigns for a granular marketing strategy while also achieving the appropriate amount of signals to target effectively and to optimize effectively. When we're relying on cookies, an awful lot of that is lost. And that results into inefficient optimizations within the bidding systems. Does all of that make sense? Happy to kind of take a question if there's anyone curious at the moment before I dig into that a little deeper. Cool. So the business impact of this, like I said, comes to budget allocation decisions, but then it really is that kind of feedback. So typically when we onboard a client, we do an audit. We understand what they're investing in their channels, how many conversions they're sending into the bidding systems, and also what they're reporting on. And typically we see that their Facebook ads are receiving about 10x less signals, and their Google ads are 5x less signals. And from this, ultimately, the result of this is that the campaigns are not as efficient, and it's increasingly difficult to be able to make budget allocation decisions. So like I said, I head up all things customer success for a business called Segmentstream. We're a conversion modeling platform that's designed specifically to take this challenge and to solve it in a very unique way. What we say is that multi-touch attribution is dead, and that in many ways, effective attribution is no longer possible. What we essentially do as a business is that we ingest all of your on-site website behavioral data, and we layer on top machine learning algorithms to be able to predict a user's probability to convert in the future for every single session that happens on site. So perhaps you're investing in upper funnel campaigns, users are coming to the website, they're not converting because it's upper funnel activities, and then they depart the site. If that user has taken appropriate action on your website that's deemed qualified or valuable, we create a modeled conversion. This model conversion can then be used for reporting and measurement, but can also be sent directly to the publishers for enhanced optimization. So taking a look at this previous just kind of path to purchase that we looked at a moment ago, where we see a lot of stuff being attributed back to direct. What we do here at Segmentstream is that we take this idea of measurement, take this idea of attribution, and just leave it to one side. We take a session-based approach using machine learning and AI technologies to be able to predict a user's probability to convert at the end of every session. You can see in this example, we have a dotted line coming across at a 15% threshold. That's just an example at the appropriate probability in this case, where we create a modeled conversion. That model conversion is not a real conversion. We are not a source of truth. We are not attributing. But what we're telling you is that that investment you put into your Facebook or your Google activities is valuable. It's quality. It's something you should be curious about, should be digging into a little deeper, should be making budget allocation decisions and in-channel optimization decisions based off that. So moving away from the standard approach of relying on multi-touch attribution, when looking through the idea of conversion modeling, essentially gives us three key benefits. It now gives us increased visibility on our investments, on what the quality of traffic we're driving is. Previously, we were relying solely on a cookie conversion to tell us whether we'd done a good job or not, whether that dollar invested was worthwhile or not. Now, when we create a model conversion based on this concept of a valuable visit, we now give ourselves increased visibility that allows enhanced measurements for budget allocation. The second piece is coming to targeting, and this is massive. So, like I said, the publishers are relying on a certain amount of conversions to exit the learning phase. And even if you do exit the learning phase, maybe you have mammoth amounts of data, you can invest an awful lot into Facebook and Google. But think about all of that investment that's not leading to a transaction or a conversion within the cookie that's going back into the publisher for feedback. You're missing out on an awful lot of positive feedback signals into the bidding systems. Essentially, when we're not sending these signals back into the publisher doesn't know if it's done a good job or not. So typically with advertisers that partner with Segmentstream, we take these model conversions and we send them back into Facebook and Google. Typically we see anywhere from 15 to 50% uplift in their campaigns because we're now filling that gap of the missed conversions from an optimization perspective. So taking this idea of conversion modeling, we just simplified it into 5 different ways that it could potentially help you as a digital marketer. So firstly, it's about understanding the impact of upper funnel campaigns. Whether you're investing in brand awareness on Facebook, video within YouTube, whatever that may be, you're likely sending traffic to your website, but you don't have an appropriate metric to evaluate it. Like I said, we of course lean on the vanity metrics, but what we need as digital marketers is a metric that we can trust to be able to understand the relative and qualitative impact of that investment. By looking at conversion modeling, this gives us that metric to be able to understand, firstly, the quality of the traffic we're driving. Secondly, gives us the ability to be able to make data-driven decisions around should we invest more, should we decrease, and third is that we can increase the scale of those campaigns by taking those model conversions and sending them back into Google and Facebook for optimization. The second point here again is just around taking those model conversions and sending them back into the publishers for enhanced optimization. And third, allows us to increase the scale of our retargeting campaigns. So again, for most of us as advertisers, we have our always-on retargeting campaigns. These audiences are built off cookies, typically our retargeting audiences within Facebook, and also remarketing lists within Google. Again, what we're doing within conversion modeling within Segmentstream is we're capturing additional data that allows us to build more concrete, defined audiences to allow you to scale your retargeting activities. The same can be done for prospecting as well. This one here is one that we often, I think, for me, when I was managing campaigns, when we'd be running the likes of A/B tests or whatever that is, we're always waiting on to understand. Well, we need a certain amount of conversions to understand whether A or B is winning, right? And we may be investing 2K, 5K in this particular test. But if we're waiting to understand how many actual transactions have happened, particularly if we know that our path to purchase 7, 10, 14 days, we do have to wait that period to understand how those particular campaigns are performing. We understand that we need to be consistently fresh. We need to be consistently creating new campaigns, updating our creatives. But it often takes us a significant amount of time to understand, are they performing well or not? By leaning on conversion modeling, we're creating a modeled conversion as soon as that session has ended. So in near real time, you can understand the value of traffic you're driving from all of your campaigns, but particularly this is incredibly valuable for your upper funnel activities. So like I said, we typically partner with businesses from all sizes, whether you're an e-commerce business, whether you're in healthcare, in lead generation, motor. We're here to essentially give you additional visibility around your data and enhanced optimization. That took me far quicker than I actually thought it would. This is the first time I've presented this, and I look back at the clock and realize I've covered that in 10 minutes when I actually had 20 minutes left to go. So I'm more than happy to stay on stage, take a seat, have a conversation around this topic, because I think, it is something that many of us are scratching our heads around this idea of a cookieless world. When we hear, the likes of Chrome pushing forward with their iteration of intelligent tracking prevention, as marketers, we're all moving to GA4 for the most part, where this concept of conversion modeling is coming up. So more than happy to field any questions, or if anyone else has any thoughts on this topic, because I'm not going to say that this is a space that's fixed. What I will say is that it's a space where I've noticed that an awful lot of the solutions seem to be, in many ways, we're all working within the same square box. We're looking at the challenge and we're applying a slightly different solution to a problem that's been around for a long time. And I'm personally very excited to be a part of this concept of conversion modeling within Segmentstream, because it's incredibly innovative. Like I said, it's not attribution. It's not to tell you exactly how much you've made, how many conversions you've had, which as marketers is not what we want to hear. I think as marketers, inherently, we want to know exactly how much we've put in, what have we got back? So we can go back to our senior leadership and say, hey, this is what my ROAS was, this is what my ROI was, and this is justifiable in terms of budget. The hard thing, I suppose, for us as marketers to kind of note is that that's becoming increasingly difficult. Yes, of course, we can rely on the solutions that are there. But what I would say to you is that it's perhaps not the most appropriate way to make these particular budget allocation decisions. And you may be, and likely are, missing out on lower hanging fruit when it comes to your overall campaigns and strategies. Now I'll pause for questions. We've got a question over here.
So essentially, if I'm understanding this correctly, you've got an algorithm on your site which is measuring the users that are coming to my site as to what types of audiences are actually converting. And then from there, you're determining how probable it is for every user that comes to my site to actually eventually convert, depending on the actual conversions that I'm having on my site. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, for the most part. So essentially what we're doing is we're doing it at a user level. So for example, you come on to Nike.com. Maybe it's a fleeting visit on your mobile, you make a couple of interactions, you view products and you depart. Your probability to convert is probably not that high. And typically what we see for e-commerce businesses is that about 80 to 90% of traffic has a probability to convert that's less than 10%. But you return, maybe on a different device. So you've seen an ad on Facebook, you came, you didn't interact too much. You then turn to your work laptop, you go straight to direct, and you're now browsing. You're adding to cart, you're adding to wish list, whatever that may be, and you leave those in your cart. That, again, will create a model conversion depending on your probability to convert. And that continues and continues. For us, if we can stitch it with a cookie, we will. Anywhere we can, of course, we will. But for the most part, what we see is for 90% of unique users, it's no longer possible to stitch that back.
Do you use then actual conversions from my platform to be able to enrich your model specifically to my business?
Correct. Everything is done unique to your business. So we do use your actual, any cookie that we can track to train our machine learning model. So that's what we use to train the model. Yeah.
These audiences and scorings of interactions that are happening on my site, are they then available through an integration with other systems I might be using on my site, such as a customer data platform or such as a behavioral data platform?
Great question. So right now, in terms of our own product and what we can do, is that we can take these audiences and create them within Facebook and Google. There are conversations internally around how this can be rolled out for CDPs, but right now, in terms of our own product functionality, we can just create these audiences within Facebook and Google. But we understand that as marketers, an awful lot of the conversation around cookieless world is leading into CDPs, server-side integrations, first-party data, and it's not as if that's not a valuable conversation to have. It absolutely is. You know, if you are a marketer that's looking to solve this solve this problem, you should be investing in a CDP. You should be looking at server-side integrations where you can, but it's also not going to fully solve the problem. But yeah, a great question, and something we're very much aware of. I think we've another. Oh, yeah.
I wasn't sure I was going to catch that. Just if you don't mind, I suppose talk about, so like let's say especially on iPhone, iPhone, the iOS, when it says ask app not to track.
Yes.
Just like, how does Segmentstream work? Maybe I missed that.
No, absolutely. This is a really, really good question, and something that we'll often allow somebody to ask the question, because it kind of, to us, it reflects that they've actually understand what we talked about, but you're absolutely correct, Susan. So obviously we can only train our model if we can look at what's happening on site. In order for us to look at what's happening on site, you do need to accept those preferences. We typically ingest behavioral data from GA. For the most part, 99% of businesses that we partner with, GA is that simple accept cookies is included within that. I am working with a couple of businesses, some pretty big household names, all in DACH, so in the German region, who are very much just kind of culturally seem to be, fronting the sphere when it comes to accepting cookies. And GA doesn't fire in that initial accept cookies. So they have one of those complicated like menus where you need to select exactly what you're going to accept and not accept. And often, and what this business has noticed is that 30% of their traffic is no longer trackable at all through GA. For us, it means we have 30% less data to train our model on, but we can still train a model based off that. In this particular example, it's a massive business with massive volumes of traffic. If you're an SMB, maybe not in the large scale, you may not be able to build this healthy model. We haven't actually come across that yet. There's been one conversation with a potential client where we reviewed their traffic and we said, guys, to be honest, we actually can't build a healthy model for you. But that's happened once in the last 12 months for me. But great question.
Hi. I take it whenever you're kind of talking about measuring valuable visits to the site, is that kind of tracking through goals and events within GA?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's still kind of a mystery to everybody, but do you have any insight or any tips about how to kind of minimize the impact whenever the switch to GA4 and being able to maintain the campaigns and the tracking with that?
Yeah, so I think the migration to GA4 has been a headache for all of us. I'm actually super lucky that a girl on my team, we were so lucky to poach her from the Google measurement team, who was actually involved in a lot of GA4. So to answer your question, I actually off the top of my head don't have a list, but I do have a list and a wonderful blog that Anna wrote, and I'm happy to share with you after. But I think what we're typically seeing with our advertisers that are migrating to GA4 is that it's kind of the basics, right? So be prepared. We know the deadline is coming. Start making that migration internally and so on. If you are using BigQuery, we recommend you plug that in immediately. Just helpful to have that data within BigQuery, whether you're partnering with a business like Segmentstream or any other provider when it comes to your own digital data. We're going to see this more and more, where the likes of a data warehouse like BigQuery is incredibly powerful, and that's one of the real key benefits of GA4. So once you get GA4 set up, we'd highly recommend you from that into BigQuery. In terms of additional, more granular tips, I'm really sorry, I don't have anything to hand, but I'll definitely be able to follow up with content because, like I said, Anna put a stellar article together that I can share.
Thank you.
I think we've got a question over here.
Thank you for this. Very informative. So two questions.
Yep.
One, obviously a lot of this is what you're showing is paid channels. How do you integrate with owned channels in help building those models? And similar to the last conversation was around, bifurcating, going after new talent or new leads versus your own, what you already have on you. How do you kind of integrate?
Yeah, great question. So just if that wasn't, because it was a little hard to hear you, so just to reiterate for everybody. So the question is around kind of non-paid channels. How do we integrate with that? How do we use this idea of conversion modeling for non-paid channels? So we essentially do, so what, for your non-paid, for example, so whether like email for you may be non-paid, whether it's, anything essentially that's, we'll always have a tracking template, I suppose, where we're always going to, any traffic that we're driving to our website, we'll have a traffic, a UTM or a tracking template included in that, and that will define, I suppose, what the channel is. So we integrate with all of that. So essentially, the way to think of what we're doing, it's kind of like, you do get your Google Analytics view where you have all of your channels inclusive of non-paid. So let's say, for example, email in this example is included in your non-paid activities, and you've got a promotional email coming out that's sending a lot of qualified traffic to your website. We'll also apply a model of conversion to that. Help you understand, out of the different emails I've sent, what is the quality of traffic from that? That can go for any other channel, essentially, as long as there's a tracking template applied. The second question was around expansion, was it? Or
bifurcating your model for new leads versus existing, nurturing your existing?
So new versus returning is something that relies on a cookie and that we can, of course, lean on if there is that particular kind of cookie. We're staying clear of it right now, which is a topic for discussion internally. In my previous business, we did an awful lot of work around new versus returning. It was all based off server side. But at the same time, we're only so let's say there's a conversion, we're catching that user in our CDP, we're stitching that to that unique user. All it takes for them is to open up a second device and do something else, and all of a sudden we don't know it's that same returning visitor, right? And that's something where our chief product officer is incredibly good, is where he's really trying to be disruptive and trying to be honest with all of the things that we actually know. That yes, we can look at doing something around new versus returning, but are we kind of lying to ourselves, saying that it's possible to do that accurately? And that's a conversation for I suppose for another day. But right now, it's an internal conversation. There's conflicting views on that, but and the conflicting views are all down to the base that we're relying on cookies to stitch that. Yep. Great questions. It's
maybe this is too long a question, but I'll try it out. So when I'm optimizing my traffic through Google Ads and everything else, I'm basically feeding into those my post view and my post click conversions. Now, your system is going to generate potential post view conversion and potential post click conversion numbers and send those for optimization into the same Google Ads. Do you have anything that you can tell us into how then that optimization changes depending on those new probable conversions that this DSP is now receiving?
So a really good question. I'll try and not get too technical to leave the room. But essentially the question was, right now today you're optimizing your campaigns based off your cookie conversions. That's for Google, that'll be anyone who's clicked and converted. For Facebook, if you're optimizing towards an impression base, that's anyone who's viewed an ad typically in 1 day or clicked an ad within 7 days. What we do with the deployment of Segmentstream is we essentially enhance your already existing purchase or lead conversion. When a client onboards with us, we create 3 different model of conversions. We create an upper funnel model of conversion, a mid funnel model conversion, and a lower funnel model of conversion. This is essentially based off their probability to convert. So the higher the probability to convert, we'd say they must be in the lower funnel section. So this is a lower funnel model of conversion. That lower funnel model of conversion has a higher value than the upper funnel model conversion. How we deploy this is we actually send each modeled conversion into that standard purchase event or lead event in a cascaded sequence. So let's say, for example, we have a user that comes to the website, they don't do too much, they leave, we fire a lower funnel model conversion. Then another user comes back, they're very highly engaged, and they create a lower funnel model conversion. So now we have 2 different users. One is kind of valuable, one's a little bit more valuable, and then we have a third user comes to the website. They're incredibly engaged, but they actually convert. The setting and optimization settings that we deploy in Facebook ads and in Google ads is maximize conversion volume or maximize conversion value. So what we're asking Google and Facebook to do is find me the users with the highest value. The highest value is always going to be the purchase that we can actually track within a cookie. So what we're asking Facebook and Google to do is to buy as many people as possible that we can track within one cookie. When we've now bought all of those people, we're going to go to the second highest value, which is going to be your conversion modeled lower funnel. These are people that have done quite a lot of engagements, that we know that they're more qualified than the upper funnel users. And for all the budget we're trying at that, we're going to buy as many of those lower funnel users as we can. And that goes on all the way up until actually the bidding system buying the upper funnel, the less qualified traffic. Does that answer your question? Cool. That's a great question. I didn't think I'd get into the weeds on that today, but if that went over your head, that's totally okay. Let's grab a coffee and we can talk about it in a little bit more detail. Cool. Well, guys, thank you so much. We did quite well. I'm now only 10 minutes under, which makes me feel a little bit bad. Not as bad as I did when I first when I first wrapped. So yeah, thank you so much for the really engaging questions. My name is Ben. I head up all things customer success. So I do sit on our leadership team for Segmentstream. So if you have any questions, if you're interested in this topic, let's grab a cup of coffee, because I'm not going to claim to know everything. This is it's a fast moving space. There's a lot of disruptive technology coming into play. There's businesses, I won't say like what we're doing, but they're similar popping up. And really for me on a personal level, it's very exciting to be a part of this journey where this is a challenge that's becoming increasingly difficult. And I think together in conferences like this, grabbing cups of coffee and maybe a pint later on, we can have some exciting conversations about how we can come together and to solve this problem. But thank you so much.